Eddie Traxler, we're here again. JazzChat.org. Still working on the website, but hopefully it'll be done, and I'll have some downloads for you. Most of these songs you can find them anyway. Today I have a good friend, Ann O'Connor, who I think I met probably pretty soon after I moved out here. I was working for Thayer Symphony and with a mutual friend, Paul. I met Ann through, and that was, 25 years ago or 20. I know neither one of us look over 20, but, So we have a couple of songs. Ann, she can tell you more about it. She was a trained classical guitarist and worked as a classical guitarist, correct?
Yes.
And you ended up having to do some other things because of hand issues. And for me, I studied classical guitar in North Carolina because that's kind of when I wanted to study music formally. That's about all they offered. Although I liked playing jazz and blues and rock and roll, to me, it's a kind of a different school of thought. And I was talking to a couple of weeks ago, I had Joe Wright, who was BU graduate. And we were talking about the differences, by the way. When you approach a classical piece, it's pretty much you're going to play what's written. When you approach a jazz piece, like a real book tune, it's kind of like you don't really want to just play what's written. It would be quite dry if you only played what's written. And so we jazzed up a bit, But anyway, I'll let Ann tell you a little bit about herself, because she knows more about her than me.
I've forgotten it all now, Ed. What can I say? First of all, I'm going to take a little bit of exception to that you don't do stuff with classical music. You play the notes that are written, but it's how you interpret it that makes a difference. So I was trying to think of how to describe it. And you could have a few simple words like the sun is red today. And depending on how you say them, you can have different meanings. The sun is red today. Mm-hmm. The sun is red, or the sun is red today. So it's just as much as interpretation as a jazz player would do, but it's just under a different set of rules.
I think you're right. That with any art form, it's probably the hardest thing to teach is how to express yourself through this this medium that we're the same as sitting here talking like you say.
Right.
Because Yo-Yo Ma's gonna play a Bach piece quite different than a first-year student in music school that they're going to be playing the same notes, but
right, the interpretation is different because with classical music, and really with any music where you've become a virtuoso, there's the interpretation is one part, and then just the physical ability to play everything the right way is just as important for both. So it's really training the mind and training the body for both of the types or all of the types of music.
And it does take a lot of practice. When like I say, I studied classical prior to coming up here to go to Berklee. But then after I finished Berklee, I studied some more classical guitar at Boston Conservatory afterward. I do love it, but I just really to work as a classical or to be proficient, I would have to put in a lot more practice just on classical guitar. And for me, I haven't really done that. There's a few classical pieces. If I get weddings or something, I'll play a couple of pieces. But as far as working as a classical guitarist, it amazes me to watch people who can do that. But anyway, we have Ann brought some songs in today. They're not kind of jazz. We could think of them as jazz. I mean, what is jazz? But they are all public domain pieces. And I have to confess, I hadn't played them before. We briefly went over them at my shop before coming here, but and I'm transposing some of them in I made myself a few notes. So, but that is something that you get used to as a musician, and you can. I encourage people, if you're learning a piece, to learn it in a couple of different keys, and then solo over it in a couple of different keys, and you kind of force yourself to hear that the melody and the chord progression. A lot of the chord progression, as we've discussed before on my jazz chat, that a lot of the chord progressions are kind of the same. It's but it carries over into classical music and carries over into folk songs and everything else. But anyway, you want to talk about this?
About this particular
first
song?
Is it Irish or is it?
No, I don't think it's Irish. I think it's American. It's called Drill Ye Tarriers Drill. It's about workers who are working with dynamite and doing things. And originally I thought, okay, a tarrier is somebody who is tarrying, who's being lazy. But the songs are also saying, take it easy. So nobody's really decided, what a tarrier is. Maybe just it was a word that fit in when they were writing it. But you'll hear when you listen to this song that the chord changes are really very simple. There's one chord, another chord, and this one throws in once. And that really, I'm going to say, is part of the beginnings of jazz, was taking some of these more folk tunes and elaborating on them. So what we're going to do is I'll sing a verse, and then I'll continue to play chords, and Eddie's going to solo over it, and then I'll sing you out with the same verse over again, because I forgot the words at home. 1, 2, 3, 4. Early in the morning at 7 o'clock, there were 20 terriers a-drilling on the rock, and the boss comes down and he says, keep still and come down heavy on your cast iron drill, and drill ye tarriers drill. Drill ye tarriers drill, and you work all day for the sugar in your tea, down behind the railway, and drill ye tarriers drill, and blast and fire. Early in the morning at 7 o'clock, there were 20 terriers a-drilling on the rock, and the boss comes down and he says, keep still and come down heavy on your cast iron drill, and drill ye terriers drill. Drill ye terriers drill, and you work all day for the sugar in your tea, down beyond the railway, and drill ye terriers drill, and blast and fire.
All right.
Sounded awesome.
That was Drill Ye Terriers Drill. So I was more or less reading it, I just had the chords down and kind of listening. It pretty much stays E minor. We talked about in my past podcast how sometimes you kind of slightly change key. When I took a solo, I was pretty much just staying in that minor pentatonic, which is pretty cliche, but you don't want it to sound like you're playing a scale. You want to, you want to have something to say, if that makes sense. We could talk about call and response, or in classical they teach antecedent consequent phrasing.
I don't think we need to go that far, Ed.
But to me, it's more like talking. Just because someone knows the alphabet really well doesn't mean they have a lot to say. So the same in music. You want to have something to say, and I think the average audience doesn't want to hear a lot of virtuoso stuff. Maybe if you're playing for a bunch of Berklee students or something, they might want to hear you throw in some, melodic minors and some, fermented demolished scales.
Did I ever tell you one of the coolest things that ever happened to me was I was at a classical guitar convention up in Toronto, and Joe Pass was playing at one of the clubs, and we invited him to, I guess we were at the University of Toronto, and we're going to set him up inside, and so many people wanted to see him that they set him up outside, and I happened to be like as far from him here as we are now. And he said, I'm not going to play for you guys because you're classical guitarists. You all play better than me. And someone said, Joe, how do you improvise? He said, well, you start with the melody, and then you throw in the bass. He was on Misty. Then you put in some chords. And 15 minutes later, when we're just all sitting there saying, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was such a great player, and he put in a lot of time. If you read his biography, I guess his father recognized some talent, and he was doing like 6 hours a day when he was, in grade school.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and it does pay off. I'm grateful I get to make a living at it. Not that I'm getting rich or anything, but I do exactly what I love. There was a time when I worked jobs that I didn't particularly like, just so I could play. But yeah, I think not that it guarantees you a job or anything, but for me, I'm grateful that I learned everything I could about music, because I wouldn't be able to teach, in college and schools and stuff if I couldn't read music. There's a lot of great players that don't read, but I think being able to read, and then I get weddings or something too that are that it's a piece that I don't particularly know, and it's a piece that I don't particularly care to listen to a whole lot. There's a wedding coming up. I have to do a Taylor Swift song. It's not some.
Are you going to wear the stilettos?
Does she? Yeah, maybe I should.
Sorry, Ed.
I should, huh?
You should. Yeah.
And I know she's a great. She's done a lot better than I'll ever do, but it's just not one of my something I listen to a lot. So being able to read music, I can just pull the lead sheet, pretty much read it. I'll play through it a lot, but I'll if I wasn't able to read, it would take me a lot longer to learn it all by ear. So
speaking of pop songs.
Well, yeah, the pop songs, and then we have Aura Lee, which Elvis, did he write his own pieces, or?
I don't think so. Hound Dog that was like a Standards Blues, right?
Big Mama Thornton, actually.
Yeah, that's who that was. So you guys will recognize this tune. It was originally Aura Lee.
Aura Lee, and then it's Love Me Tender by Elvis, right?
Yeah.
And
same melody, same progressions.
Am I playing in this key or different?
B flat key.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we were going over prior. Ann's playing it on a ukulele, so.
Yeah, the ukulele is tuned in the same pattern as the top strings of a guitar, but it's higher. Mm-hmm. So since I'm a guitarist and have been playing chords on guitar since a very long time, it's no problem to play a ukulele.
And I've noticed the last theater gig I was on, they had done that. I was like, why would they do that?
Add in a uke?
Yeah, but they had it transposed. It's like the wrong melody.
Oh.
And I went to the conductor. I said, that's not what I have. And it turned out it was the uke part that.
Oh, well, maybe they just had a guitar player playing the uke, so they pretended they were playing guitar, which is often how I do it. So then sometimes I get confused in the whole middle of the thing because then I'll switch keys.
Yeah.
I'll try not to do that today, Ed. But what I thought was cool in here is we've got a really nice chord progression that I think we hear a lot better on a uke than we do on a guitar.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me get that right.
Yeah, that's a familiar chord progression for sure.
Yeah, just kind of marches you around. But you want to give this a go?
Yeah, we'll try this one. This is Orally or Love Me Tender, whichever one you want
We
to
can't do anything not in the public domain.
Oh, so it's Orally.
It's orally. Yeah, want to do the same thing as before? One verse, solo, another verse? Okay.
Sounds good.
As the blackbird in the spring, 'neath the willow tree, sat and piped, I heard him sing, praising Auralee. Auralee, Auralee, made of golden hair. Sunshine came along with thee, and swallows in the air. As the blackbird in the spring, 'neath the willow tree, sat and piped, I heard him sing, praising Auralee. Auralee, Auralee, made of golden hair. Sunshine came along with thee, and swallows in the air.
Orally.
All right.
So this is one I give it to students a lot, and these chord progressions are not really copyrightable, to my knowledge. So the melody is.
But if the melody already exists in a folk song like this, you can put your new words, and then you would copyright your words.
Yeah,
Or perhaps your arrangement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I mean, if chord progressions were copyrighted, then everybody who plays blues would be plagiarizing, right?
That's right.
Because I mean, it's all like, and most of the time, I think session players more talk about it, or even if you go to blues jams, even people that don't read, they'll talk about it in numbers. They'll say, "Oh, it's a 1-4-5." It's a 1-6-2-5. It's the chord progression, which we'll have the downloads of all that stuff. And so probably the most common is a 12-bar blues. Whereas we're in B flat here. This is not a 12-bar blues, but if you, in the simplest form, you do the one chord for 4 measure, 2, 3, 4. Then you go to the 4 chord for 2 measure. Back to the 1, 5.
Okay, we're going to challenge him to do the same thing with minors.
Yeah, we can do it.
I can't play in that key.
But another really common chord progression is a 1-6-2-5 or a 1-6-4-5. So that would, in the key of C, you know, if C is a 1 and you count up 6, you would be on the A. 6 chords are minor if you're staying diatonic to the key. And I'll have the book that I wrote, From Blues Rock to Bach, it talks about chords within a key. If you just were to write out a scale, if you did a scale on one string down, and you start stacking the notes up and staying in the same key, it's going to come out in major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. You do the 3-note ones, major, minor, minor, major, major. So anyway, what I'm getting at, and then you can do 7th chords too. This is all in the book that I wrote. You'll be able to download that for free. A 1-6-2-5, the 6th chord's going to be a minor, and the 2 chord will be a minor. So if we're going, you know, C. So that's probably the second most common progression. And you'll hear it done super fast in jazz, you know. So what happens is you can, if you're thinking about it in numbers, I think it's a lot easier to change keys in a hurry, because you get on sessions or whatever, and they say, "Well, I can't sing in that key. You know, you got to change it." So if you're thinking in numbers, and that a lot of these chord progressions keep reoccurring to be able to do them in a bunch of different keys as far as the way we practice them, and knowing whether it stays in the same key or not.
Well, and that's one reason you'll see a more folk-oriented player will like to play like a lot of open chords, which have open strings. But if they get into a nasty key, like if Eddie wanted to play in B flat major, that would be really nasty for a.
Wasn't I just playing in B flat?
Yeah, so I didn't do it.
No, but this was in B flat.
For you it was.
That's why
I was playing in C. You've seen, we have capos that you can put on the guitar, and that effectively moves the nut. And when you move the nut, you're moving the key.
Yeah, and that's. I guess it's a good for people that are, especially if you're just beginning and you don't know bar chords at the time. I have trouble keeping up with things, so I had to learn my bar chords. Could never keep up with the capo. But no, and you do get a different sound. Like sometimes, if I were doing theater work or something and it called for a ukulele part, I would just capo there and it would sound just like a ukulele. You know,
yeah, if you were playing
really
a nylon
similar.
string,
Yeah. So sometimes they're handy for sure, and especially if you only know, you know, I call them cowboy chords, you know, for playing cowboy music. So if you want to change keys, you know, you don't have to.
You just throw on the capo.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is convenient for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, should we take it out with House of the Rising Sun?
Yeah, we're right now, we're at 23 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
So we have House of the Rising Sun. We could.
Well, that can go on for quite a while.
And this is another one. Ann said, "Well, I do it in E minor like everybody else." I said, "Well, I don't do it in E. I always."
I said he didn't listen to Eric Burden.
I did it in A minor forever.
But because I'm singing, I get to choose the E minor key.
So E minor. And one thing about House of the Rising Sun that's a little different from a lot of tunes that you might play in the beginning. It's in 6/8. 6/8. I guess if you grew up in church or something, you might be used to that. It's really 2 groups of 3, right?
Yeah, so that's why, like, for a beginning guitar player, it's a good way to learn some finger picking patterns because you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. And it sounds really good, you know?
Yeah, and if you wanted to strum it, you could do the same thing. Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I'm tapping my foot to 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think a lot. Well, there's different kinds of 6/8. this is
If
more
I did,
like
I counted it in 3.
like
didn't I?
a gospel thing, or some people write it in 3, but a lot of like there's like Silent Night is 6/8, right?
That's 3/4.
Well, you could think 3/4, or you
1,
could
2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
3/4 or 6/8. But then you have like gospel, you have what they call 12/8.
Okay.
Which is 4/4, but it's 4,
Yeah, but then you have 2 notes between each major beat. Happens a lot with Irish jigs and stuff.
Those are dance tunes, right? Which maybe carries over from some classical, because bourrées and minuets were dance pieces too.
Right, because throughout history there's been a lot of cross-pollination. A lot of classical composers have listened to folk music and based what they write on top of that.
Yeah.
Not so much the other way, but it happens.
Cool. So we're gonna do some House of Rising Sun. It's not written by the Animals. There's some old Leadbelly versions, but he didn't write either. I had a friend of mine who worked over in Africa, and he said they were singing this exact same melody in another language, and I've had people come in my shop that would sing it in another language.
Oh wow!
And so it's something that's been passed down through the years, the melody and the chord progressions.
Yeah, because I kind of thought it was like an English folk tune.
Could be. I don't know.
I don't know. I always find this an interesting one. It's set in New Orleans in this particular version, and the young woman in the song is a lady of ill repute.
Okay, because and a lot of people thought that about the one that the Animals, or Leadbelly.
Yeah.
But it's really about a prison. If you listen to the word that I'm going back, they're carrying me back to being my ball and chain. That's what Leadbelly was saying.
Yeah, the way I'm interpreting it is that this woman has no other way of making a living. Because when I was doing some research on this, the women in those houses were Irish or black or Indian. So it was, the poorest women in there.
Yeah.
So
anyway, House of the Rising Sun,
off we
we
go.
got about 3 minutes.
All right, so we'll just keep going till we go. Song and then, okay. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor girl, and Lord, I know I'm one. If I had listened to what Mama said, I'd have been